Coming up next on Arizona Horizon, a look at the World Cup now that the U.S. team is out of the competition. Also tonight, AI scams targeting seniors are becoming more sophisticated and harder to spot. And we'll hear about Hospice of the Valley's pet therapy program. Those stories and more next on Arizona Horizon.
Arizona Horizon is made possible by contributions from the Friends of Arizona PBS, members of your public television station.
Good evening and welcome to Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. The U.S. is out of this year's World Cup. This after a lopsided 4-1 defeat to Belgium yesterday, but the tournament continues and the world is still watching. But will Americans continue to care about the competition, and what will be the impact of the World Cup on the future of American soccer? Joining us now is Andres Martinez, the co-director of ASU's The Great Game Lab. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to see you, Ted. Thanks for having me.
All right, last night's game, how big a deal was the game itself?
It was a crushing disappointment for many of us who had really gotten our hopes up. I mean, going into the tournament, expectations weren't particularly high for this team. Despite the fact that they're the golden generation and such. They had looked a little wobbly in some of the friendlies and games leading up to the tournament. But boy, on June 12th, when they had that opening game against Paraguay, suddenly it seemed like the coach, Mauricio Pochettino, had really brought it together. And they played, it was the best performance by a U.S. men's national team that I'd ever seen in my life. And so I think everyone's hopes got really high. You also had home field advantage. So it was very disappointing last night. It's almost as if the team had not shown up, and it was too reminiscent of some previous crash outs from these tournaments. You know, we got to the round of 16. It's not a total humiliation, but with home field advantage, you would have wanted to see more.
Not a total humiliation, but was it an embarrassment?
I think the performance was. Look, being knocked out of a World Cup by Belgium in a good match is not going to be an embarrassment. That is a very top-notch team, but the performance was embarrassing. We have some incredible stars on that team that have excelled in top European leagues, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, and they just didn't show up last night.
Was it a setback for soccer in the U.S.? Because, I mean, as you said, the expectations were so high, kind of cut off at the knees a little bit here. What do you think?
I wouldn't call it a setback. I would call it a missed opportunity. We had an opportunity, I think, in this tournament to go to a quarterfinals, a semifinals, and make history. I think the momentum of soccer in the U.S. and our global engagement with the world's most popular sport is not, it's irreversible at this point. I think it's going to continue. But this could have accelerated, I think, the popularity of the sport, for sure.
It seemed like the U.S. picked the worst time to play their worst game here. And I want to ask you, the reinstatement controversy here with the president calling FIFA and all of a sudden the red card player, he's back in. And for some people, the U.S. became the villain and Belgium was everyone was. Did that hurt the U.S. team?
Well, I mean, to use a soccer term, it felt like an own goal. Right?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a hurt play.
This team did not need this. And I felt so bad for them and for the players and for Balogun himself. I mean, none of them asked for this to occur. And you're right. I mean, that team had won over a lot of fans in the U.S., but also a lot of respect from people who follow the sport outside the U.S. They were a likable team of underdogs in this tournament. And suddenly, overnight, they became the villains because they were seen as a team, you know, that had benefited from political interference, and there was no good outcome there.
Yeah.
I'm glad that the President of the United States is invested in this sport, which traditionally American leaders, you know, rejected and had wanted no part of. But this, it's careful what you wish for. This is not what I had hoped for, and I think that was just a very ill-advised involvement.
The World Cup overall, the success of what we've seen so far, the massive crowds, the TV ratings and stuff like this, will that override the fact that the U.S., this really didn't go as far as people expected and kind of went as far as they have in previous World Cups?
Yeah, I mean, the World Cup has been an incredible success. I think it's exceeded this World Cup has exceeded all our expectations. It's broken every attendance record. It's just been incredible. The ambiance in the stadiums and just all of the interactions between the international visitors discovering all these quirks of our, you know, American society, and also just including Canada and Mexico in the mix. But there is a little bit of energy that gets lost at any major international competition when the host nation gets knocked out. The TV ratings have been astronomical by US standards, and I think those will continue to be quite healthy, but you're not going to really test the ceiling and start maybe approximating NFL type ratings within the US if the US is not present.
Right, right. What does the men's team need to do to advance further than this World Cup and previous World Cups? It's kind of like the same old song and dance here. What needs to be done?
Right. I mean, I think that you're right. We've hit the sort of, we got knocked out of the round of 16 in the 2014 World Cup by Belgium, and that's what happened last night. So it's a disappointing lack of progress. I think we need to continue to develop. There's been a lot of very good analysis about the ways in which our youth development, our pay-to-play kind of system, maybe doesn't incorporate all of the talent that we could. The MLS remains a relatively weak domestic league. Where we've been very successful is having more and more of our American players in top European leagues. And that's kind of where we had put our hopes in with this generation of players. And they had a bad night, and a bad night means you have to wait 4 more years.
Yeah. Last question here. I asked what the men's team needs to do to get to that level and to succeed. The women's team's already there. I mean, they've done it. They've reached the pinnacle here. Can the men's team learn anything from the way the women's team operates?
I think the U.S. women's national team and women's soccer in general in the U.S. is really what took the foreign edge off the sport in the U.S. and made it part of our mainstream culture, going back to post-Title IX, the growth of the game in schools and universities like ASU, and then those World Cups in the 90s with the teams of like Julie Foudy and Mia Hamm. It is, to be fair though, they were pioneers in the sport. They picked up a game that in the rest of the world in those years, people felt girls shouldn't play.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
There was no cultural resistance. And now we've exported the concept of high-level women's soccer to the rest of the world, which has been a great thing to see, even as we've imported the men's game. So, but I do hope that the men's team can start replicating some of the success we've seen on the women's side. And next summer, we'll have a Women's World Cup to look forward to.
There we go. Andres Martinez, again, with ASU, and your book is The Great Game Lab, correct? This just came out just in time, huh?
The Great Game.
I'm sorry, The Great Game, yeah.
A Tale of Two Footballs, and then the project we have at ASU, which explores how sport is connecting us to the rest of the world, is, as you said, The Great Game Lab.
There we go. Now we got it right. Andres, good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Nice to see you, Ted. Thank you.
AI is increasingly being used by scammers who are targeting consumers in a variety of sophisticated and personalized ways. Tonight, as part of our monthly AARP-sponsored segment that highlights issues important to older adults in Arizona, we look at how seniors are being specifically targeted by these AI-generated scams. And for that, we welcome Joe Ducey from the Better Business Bureau. Good to see you again.
Good to be here.
Good to have you here, because every time we're here, you're talking about how people are trying to scam people out of money. AI scams in general and against older adults. How common right now?
Very common, increasingly common, and that's a scary part, and some of them are obvious and some of them are not as obvious, and we can go into some of those things.
Okay, and it sounds like everything from creating sophisticated websites and emails, voice cloning. That sounds pretty sophisticated to me.
It does. At first, I have to say seniors are still the targets for scams.
Yes.
And seniors are losing more money than any other population. And these are cryptocurrency scams and investment scams. And a lot of the common scams that you see, employment, your Norton antivirus has, you need a subscription or whatever. A lot of that leads to these two things, crypto and investment scams. And I've talked to people who've lost $500,000. I talked to one the other day who had a senior who had a LexisNexis or a Norton antivirus thing, called the office that they say to call if there's a problem, and ended up losing $500,000.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's crazy. But the way AI, first of all, AI is a problem. The BBB recently did a survey and found, I think 100,000 people said in the last 3 years that AI was used somehow to take money from them. There's been reports about the FBI says $21 billion was taken from people, and AI played a big part of that, and seniors were a big part, and that's just in 1 year, 2025.
Whoa.
But I think that Some of these are obvious. Some of these are those videos that you see online from celebrities. There's one here. I watched a video on Facebook. It's supposed to be Dr. Oz. Then after the payment went through, I started seeing that it was an AI-generated video. There are thousands of people who have been scammed by the same company. Apparently, Dr. Oz says, I never did anything like this. But it looked just like Dr. Oz. Those are the obvious ones.
So, and again, these are the obvious ones, but it used to be the obvious ones were clumsy, the accent wasn't right, the wording wasn't right. It seems like it's gotten a lot more sophisticated.
And that, I think, is the real danger. For seniors, for all of us.
Yes.
I mean, it's knowing, we used to say, look at punctuation, look at mistakes made, look at, whatever it is. A lot of that's been taken away because AI has been able to do that. So no longer do you have those points where you could look for, what is a problem. And I think that's going to lure a lot more people into the fold.
The voice cloning aspect is something else that's just, frankly, it's terrifying. You take a few words from someone and you can have them call a relative and say, what, I'm in trouble, I need money, that kind of thing?
I don't know if you guys remember the old grandparent scam, but it was basically, that's gone on for a long time. It's basically somebody calling and pretending to be a grandson or granddaughter and saying, hey, Grandma, I'm in Indiana and my car's broken down, I need money, or I've been arrested for something that whatever, and I need whatever. And then usually the grandparent says, is this Tommy? And then gives them the name. Oh, Tommy, it's Tommy, and I want to do blah, blah, blah. So that's been around a while, but now apparently, and people are reporting that they're taking the person's voice and cloning it. So it sounds just like their grandson or granddaughter. And I think I was telling you earlier, we were both like, oh my gosh. Experts are saying don't leave voice messages as often. Don't leave something on your answering machine if people still have those that say, hey, I'll be back. Because they could take that section, 3 to 5 seconds, and make it into anything.
And I also read that there are ways to fight that, and one of the ways to fight that is to call back the person who just called and said, hey, it's Tommy, I need money. Give Tommy a call back and see if that was really Tommy, A, and B, use maybe a code word in the family so that you know that that's someone in the family.
I like the latter.
Better than the other,
former, yes, because I don't know if I want people calling back because I think sometimes they get engaged again some way, and I see a lot of people losing money.
No, I mean, call Tommy.
Oh, call Tommy, yeah, call Tommy. You're right. That's definitely. But the code name, the code word, we have that in the family now.
Oh, do you?
You have to say,
Oh, wow.
You have to say whatever it is. And so you ask them, what's the code word?
Okay, give us some other.
My kids wouldn't remember, though. That's the problem.
I was going to say, I'd be rotten with that. Some ideas for seniors in particular, but for all of us, to watch out. What do we watch for with this stuff?
Well, it's tough. I mean, the thing that I think is the danger here is that AI is allowing better websites. They're allowing multiplication of seniors' numbers. Maybe it was a targeted number and they were successful, some scammer. That goes on a list. Now AI can just take that information and gather it and go after all these people. So the things I think people need to do, don't trust anybody. Don't trust anybody.
Not even Tommy, huh?
Not even Tommy. I mean, expect that it's a scam if it comes through on the phone, on an email, and on a text. And I hate to say that because, I mean, we like to trust, but I think it needs to be proven to you that it's not a scam. So I say don't answer your phone. I've always told people, doctors will leave messages, prescription will leave messages, the drugstore. Don't answer your phone, don't click on the links, don't respond to texts. That's the main thing. You don't want to get involved with these people. You need to check out where you're going with these places. You think you're going to one place, but your email is going someplace else, or your web address. So you click on something and it takes you someplace else. You have to immediately say, that's not right. I want to go to Amazon, not AmazonShop.com or whatever the heck it could be. It could be some fake email. If you're asked to wire money, send cryptocurrency, give account personal information, think scam, don't do it, and slow down and trust. I mean, a person who's in your family to talk to about something.
Yes.
Take your time and say, listen, I have some concerns. I'm going to talk to Jill or whoever it might be.
And the biggie would be limit your personal data online.
Very good. Yeah, that's important. Limit as much as you can online because, especially when it comes to seniors, I've heard they're very prolific in their posts, many of them, and they give information that scammers are looking for. Yeah. It could involve like the bank or the new house or the vacation or something involving money. Yeah. And they get in that way. And it could be a romance scam, which people are losing huge amounts of money on. And so the less information online, the better.
All right, Joe Ducey, Better Business Bureau, good information to have. Thank you so much for sharing it. We appreciate it.
Definitely. Glad to be here.
Hospice of the Valley offers a pet therapy program involving a wide variety of animals that visit patients in homes and assisted living facilities. The goal to give a boost of energy and love to those in hospice care. To learn more, we welcome Lynn Sue Flood. She's Director of Community Engagement at Hospice of the Valley. And also with us is volunteer Ed Geston, along with Huck, the therapy dog. There he is with Lynn Sue. Hi there, Huck. There's a good boy. That looks like a very good boy.
He is. Look at those eyes.
Yes, little corgi. Lindsay, I'm going to start with you. This is called Pet Connections. Give me a better idea about Pet Connections.
Started 20 years ago when one of our medical directors brought her golden lab to visit a patient, and you know, the happiness it brought, the wet kisses, the waggly tail, blood pressure goes down, serotonin levels go up. We just realized what a boon that would be for all of our patients and families, and our Pet Connections program was off and running.
Took off, and animal, dogs, cats, miniature horses?
Yes, over the years we've had dogs, cats, rabbits, miniature horses, and it's really something to see a cat, because those cats that are pet therapy cats, they're very much like a dog. They follow you, they go on a leash, they come when they're called. It's really remarkable.
It is, and Ed, congratulations with Huck there. He's a great guy. Talk about your relationship with Huck.
So Huck came into my world when he was 3, and he and I retired at the same time. So he was a working dog on a farm. He was a stud dog, and I had retired, and we needed to have a job. And we found each other. It was very serendipitous. My daughter was visiting from New York. She had a picture of the dog. I looked at it for 15 seconds, said, I'm in. He became part of my world. I trained him extensively every day, and I was welcomed with open arms at this amazing institution called Hospice of the Valley. I met senior leadership, and they said, Ed, we'd like you to come. You will be Huck's driver. And that's how it started.
I was going to say, that in terms of getting with Hospice of the Valley, did you have to show him what Huck could do? Did Huck have to prove himself? How did that work?
So actually the way it works is there are 2 national organizations. One is called Pet Partners and the other is called Alliance for Dog Therapy. So you have to be authorized with them so you have basic good behavior, right? No tricks.
Yes.
It was his eyes that sold him.
They're so soulful.
And he's had so many great relationships initially, and it continues to go on.
An impact on your life?
It's changed my life. He's changed my life. Meeting people that are in that situation in their lives, wherever they are, and wherever we find them, whether they're children that are coming into the world with serious challenges, or people at the end of their life. I've discovered things that are amazing to see how this dog can impact people's lives. It's really quite magical. And I did not train him to be a therapy dog. He taught himself that. I taught him to be an obedience dog, but I did not train him to bring love to people.
Yeah.
And watching him do it is an amazing experience.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
So it's quite enjoyable.
Lynn Sue, do patients, caregivers, do they have to request a therapy animal? Does maybe the hospice staff think, I think a therapy animal might be good? How does that work?
Both ways. They can request that, and we also make visits to facilities. But if someone says, and you know, I have a standard poodle who's also a therapy dog for Hospice of the Valley, hey, I would love a big dog visit. Some people prefer big dogs, some want little ones that can sit in their lap. They call me, and Kiz and I get in the car and we go make a visit.
Yeah.
So yes, we do requests from our patients, and then we also just visit on our own. But you know the magic, you talked about magic, Ed. It's that dogs don't care what you feel like or you smell like. They just want to make you happy.
Yeah.
And they do. They instantly do, because every moment of their life is the best moment ever.
Well, and the impact, obviously the impact on those in hospice care is palpable, I would imagine. The impact on staff, the impact on caregivers, that's got to be big too.
It is. Very often the family members are not leaving the bedside of their loved one. And staff, you know, they just lavish compassion all day long and empty themselves out. It's really nice to have something to cuddle and to just hug onto that kisses you right back.
And it's really nice to know that Huck's doing a good job. I mean, you must be so proud of that young man.
I am beyond proud of him. It's hard to express how he's changed my life.
Yes.
In such a way that I've learned so much about the way he thinks and how he can impact people. You know, I look at people who maybe have very little joy,
You're right.
and
Right.
for lots of different reasons, but he can find a connection, and you can see somebody's light goes on, and that's special.
Yes, yes, it is. To learn more, let's say someone's watching this and they think maybe their miniature poodle might be a good fit, or someone's watching this and they think, I'd like to get a dog like Huck or something like that into someone that I know and care about. Where do you go? What do you do?
His first thing is just go to our website, hov.org, and in the search bar, type in pet therapy. Takes you right to the page that explains how you have to get certified, and then you become part of our Pet Connections team.
And the certification is, again, the national program, local program,
There
both?
are two
There's
local
two.
or national programs, and it's really a temperament test.
Yes.
You have a trainer that will take you in different environments and see how your dog behaves, because you need one that is calm, that doesn't panic, that doesn't bark, that doesn't startle easily, that doesn't scratch legs
Yes.
or slobber all over people, but just hangs out with those
I was
soulful eyes.
I was going to say, you need Huck is what you
Yes.
need there. Well, thank you both. Congratulations on the success on this. You're changing lives in such big ways. And Huck, I can't see you because you're under the table over there. But thank you, Huck, for showing up as well. You're doing a great job. He is a good boy, I can tell.
He's a great
He's
boy.
a very good boy.
Thank you,
Good to have
Ted.
you both here.
Thank you
very
for
much.
having us.
You bet.
Bye.
And that is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening. I like to think that at Arizona Horizon we are unique